The scandal nobody saw coming. Every year, the NBA draft crowns new stars. But this time, something went very wrong. Because before Ace Bailey ever stepped onto an NBA court, his name was already wrapped in controversy, whispers of secret warnings, blocked hires, a manager the league didn't trust, and what looked like a rookie's dream turned into a scandal that's now spinning out of control. This is how the Ace Bailey story went from draft day drama to something 10 times worse. Section 1. The rookie who broke the rules. What if the NBA's next superstar didn't wait to earn power? He took it before even playing a single game. Before his first paycheck, before his first jump ball, Ace Bailey did something no rookie in recent memory had the nerve to do. He changed the entire draft conversation overnight. Teams that had scouted him for years suddenly froze. Front office phones went silent. Scouts who'd sworn he was a can't-miss top 3 pick started whispering the same question. What just happened? Because behind the scenes, Bailey's camp had quietly sent a message that sent shockwaves through the league. Don't draft him. Not don't draft him late. Not don't draft him unless you can offer the max. Just don't draft him, or he won't play for you. To the public, everything still looked normal. The analysts kept calling him a generational athlete. The highlight reels rolled on ESPN, and fans were counting down the days. But inside front offices, panic was setting in. For executives who had already built their draft boards around Bailey, this was a nuclear bomb. It wasn't just bold, it was reckless. It was something that could ruin a career before it even started. Because the NBA doesn't like to be told what to do. And in that moment, one 19-year-old kid from Rutgers had just told half the league exactly that. But here's the thing. Ace Bailey wasn't acting alone. Someone was pulling strings behind the curtain, whispering in the right ears, crafting a message that sounded more like a warning than advice. And that's when this story starts to get really messy. Section 2. The warning that shook the draft. It started quietly. A few phone calls, a few whispers. Then, almost overnight, every front office in the top 5 knew the same thing. Draft Ace Bailey, and you'll regret it. No one knew where it began. Some said it came from a family advisor. Others swore it was Bailey himself trying to steer his future. But the message was crystal clear. If certain teams picked him, he wouldn't show up. At first, teams laughed it off. Nobody turns down a top 5 contract, one executive said. But when Bailey stopped returning calls and private workouts were quietly canceled, it stopped being funny. The San Antonio Spurs, who had scouted him for 2 years, suddenly pulled their invite. Toronto closed the door next. Houston, gone. These weren't random teams. They were the same organizations that had built reputations for player development. Perfect landing spots for a young forward like Bailey. And yet, one by one, they backed away. Draft boards started changing. Analysts on ESPN called it a mysterious late-stage reshuffle. Behind the scenes, it was panic. No one wanted to be the team that took a player who'd refused to put on their jersey. And that's when people started wondering, who could be bold enough to engineer this? Who was powerful enough to make entire billion-dollar franchises hesitate? That's when one name kept coming up. A name most fans had never heard. A man who wasn't an agent, wasn't certified, and yet somehow controlled everything around Bailey. Section 3. The man behind the curtain, Omar Cooper. The warnings didn't come out of thin air. They came from one man, Omar Cooper. Most fans had never heard the name before. But inside college gyms and draft rooms, Cooper was whispered about like a ghost in the system. The guy who could get you in the room, but also the guy who could get you blacklisted. He wasn't an agent. He wasn't certified by the NBPA. He didn't have a contract, a license, or a single official tie to the league. Yet somehow, he controlled one of the most promising players in the country. Cooper called himself a family advisor, but in reality, he operated more like a gatekeeper. Every scout, every reporter, every team official had to go through him first. If he liked you, you got access. If he didn't, doors closed, fast. During Bailey's time at Rutgers, Cooper became the unseen architect of his future. He picked which trainers Bailey worked with, which interviews he gave, and even who sat courtside at his games. By the time the draft rolled around, Ace Bailey wasn't just a top prospect, he was Cooper's ultimate project. And when the rumors spread that Bailey's camp had warned teams not to draft him, every finger pointed back to one person. The man who wasn't even supposed to be in the room was suddenly calling the shots. Executives started to get nervous. "Who's really running this kid?" one GM asked off the record. Because if Cooper could steer a first-round pick away from entire franchises, what else was he controlling? Then, just when people thought they'd seen it all, one NBA team decided to test the warning. A team that didn't care about politics, power, or hidden advisors. They took the risk anyway. Section 4, the gamble that ignited the fire. The warnings were loud, the rumors were clear, and still, the Utah Jazz didn't care. When draft night arrived, front offices scrambled, phones buzzed, and analysts tried to predict who would take the risk. But as the commissioner stepped up to the podium and read the name Ace Bailey, the entire arena went silent for a split second, followed by gasps. Utah had just done what everyone else was afraid to do. They ignored the threats, the red flags, and the whispers from Cooper's camp. To them, Bailey wasn't a liability. He was a future franchise player. Social media exploded. Some called it a masterstroke. Others said Utah had just drafted a ticking time bomb. Within minutes, hashtag Ace Bailey started trending across Twitter and Reddit. Analysts were split. Half said Utah was brave, finally putting basketball over politics. The other half said the Jazz had just invited chaos into their locker room. And deep down, Bailey knew it. Because while the cameras caught his smile on stage, behind the scenes, the situation was already starting to crack. The NBA doesn't like players controlling who drafts them, especially through unofficial advisors. And when Utah made that pick, the league office started asking questions. Who exactly had been calling those teams? Why did so many back off at once? And what kind of influence did Omar Cooper really have over this 19-year-old rookie? It wasn't just about one player anymore. It was about control, who held it and who dared to challenge it. And in that moment, Utah's gamble turned a quiet rumor into a full-blown investigation. Section 5, the blocked hire and NBA intervention. Just days after the draft, whispers started again. But this time, they weren't about Ace Bailey's game. They were about a deal that should have never existed. According to insiders, Omar Cooper wasn't done. Right after Utah picked Bailey, he allegedly tried to slide his own son into the Jazz organization. The plan? A position on the Summer League coaching staff, a move that looked small on paper but set off alarm bells inside the NBA. To the league, it wasn't just nepotism, it was leverage. If Cooper's son joined the team, Cooper would suddenly have an inside line, direct access to the locker room, player meetings, and maybe even decisions about Bailey's playing time. And that was a line the NBA couldn't let anyone cross. Behind the scenes, calls started flying between league offices and Utah's front office. Within hours, the deal was dead. The Jazz quietly backed off. No announcement, no explanation, just silence. But the damage was done. The story leaked, and once again, Ace Bailey's name was trending. This time not for dunks or highlights, but because of a blocked backroom deal. Reporters demanded answers. Was Bailey aware of it? Did Cooper orchestrate it for money, influence, or control? Nobody knew, and neither side wanted to talk. Utah tried to play it cool, insisting the situation was handled internally. But everyone could see what was happening. The league was watching. The Jazz were spooked. And Bailey, the kid caught in the middle, was about to make the biggest decision of his career. Section 6, the split that spoke volumes. After weeks of silence, Ace Bailey finally made his move. No press conference, no interview, just one quiet announcement. He was cutting ties with Omar Cooper. For months, Cooper had been the loudest voice in Bailey's career, the self-proclaimed advisor who shaped every decision. Now, he was out. At first, fans thought it was just a normal management change, but insiders knew better. The timing was too perfect. It happened days after the NBA blocked Cooper's son from joining Utah. days after the league started asking questions, and just as rumors of a quiet investigation started spreading. Bailey's statement was clean and polite. "I'm grateful for everything Omar's done, but I'm ready for the next chapter." But behind closed doors, it wasn't that simple. Sources close to the Jazz said team officials had been urging Bailey to distance himself for weeks. They didn't want more league scrutiny, more leaks, or any chance of interference. To them, Cooper wasn't just an advisor. He was a liability, and Cooper didn't take it quietly. He went on record calling the split a misunderstanding, insisting he'd always acted in Bailey's best interest, but the damage was already done. One of the most powerful behind-the-scenes figures in college basketball had just been erased overnight. Still, the question lingered. Did Bailey finally realize he was being used, or was he just forced to play along with the league's cleanup? Either way, the message was clear. Ace Bailey was now on his own. No more advisors, no more interference. Just a 19-year-old rookie with the weight of an entire scandal on his shoulders. But as the dust settled, something unexpected began to happen. What looked like a clean break was only the start of a much deeper problem. Section 7. The aftershock. Inside the locker room. On paper, the crisis was over. Bailey had a new agent, the Jazz had their rookie, and the headlines were starting to fade. But inside the locker room, it didn't feel over at all. Veteran players started whispering. Reporters noticed Bailey spending more time alone during practice. The easy smiles from draft night were gone. It wasn't hostility, it was uncertainty. Nobody knew who was really running things anymore, or what baggage the kid might still be carrying. According to insiders, the Jazz front office began setting quiet boundaries. Every media request had to be cleared through team PR. Every public appearance was double-checked. The message was subtle, but sharp. No more surprises. Even Bailey's new management team was reportedly clashing with Utah executives. There were disputes over endorsement rights, rookie-scale bonuses, and even what brands Bailey could promote. What should have been a smooth rookie transition was turning into a silent tug-of-war. And while all this unfolded, Bailey tried to keep his head down and play. But it's hard to focus when every mistake, every missed shot, every locker room whisper gets linked back to your name. Some teammates defended him, said he was quiet, respectful, focused. Others weren't so sure. "You can feel the tension," one anonymous player said, "like everyone's waiting for the next headline." And the sad part? They were right to wait. Because even though the league had stepped in and the advisor was gone, the truth was that Ace Bailey's story was no longer about basketball. It had become something bigger, a story about control, power, and what happens when a rookie learns how fragile that power really is. Section 8. The bigger picture. Player power or dangerous precedent. When the smoke finally cleared, the story of Ace Bailey wasn't just about a rookie and his advisor. It was about something much bigger, a shift happening quietly across the entire NBA. For decades, teams held all the power. They drafted who they wanted, where they wanted, and players had no say. But now, the balance is changing. We've seen stars force trades, demand control, and rewrite contracts, but never before had a rookie tried to shape his destiny before even stepping on the court. Some fans saw Bailey's move as genius, a young player refusing to be trapped in the wrong system. They called it player empowerment at its finest. But others saw it differently, not empowerment, but arrogance, a dangerous sign that influence, even before achievement, could corrupt the sport from the inside. Because if a 19-year-old prospect can threaten billion-dollar teams and get away with it, what stops the next one from doing the same? The NBA knows this too. That's why the whispers around league offices aren't just about Ace Bailey, they're about the future, about what happens when every top prospect starts thinking they can control the board. And maybe that's the true legacy of this scandal. It's not the blocked hire. It's not the cut ties or the headlines. It's the quiet question that now lives in every draft war room. Is this kid the next franchise star or the next Ace Bailey? Because in the end, Bailey didn't just play the game. He challenged the system before ever lacing up. And whether that makes him a visionary or a warning sign, one thing's for sure. This story isn't over yet. And that's the story. The scandal that started with a whisper and exploded into one of the most talked about rookie controversies in years. A story about ambition, control, and how one decision can change everything before a single game is played. Because Ace Bailey didn't just make headlines, he forced the NBA to look in the mirror. Was this confidence or chaos? A young star protecting his future, or a warning sign of what happens when power lands too early? Whatever the answer is, one thing's undeniable. This isn't just about Ace Bailey anymore. It's about the new era of basketball that's already here. So keep watching. Because if the whispers are true, what's coming next might make this scandal look like nothing at all.